And happy Thursday, everyone. What is going on? Welcome back to Thursday Live. Lots going on here. I had said that we were going to be working on the gas station painting today. Sorry, I'm getting stuff everywhere. That we're going to be working on the gas station painting today, but I'm going to give you guys a choice. I have two paintings that I'm kind of working on, that gas station painting and one of the 543s. So I was working on that right before we started. So I figured I would give you guys the option. I'll show you that in a few minutes, and then you guys can tell me what you want to see. So we'll either start the gas station painting, or we can work on the moon painting, which I just gave it away. So there you go. That's it. I hope you guys are having a good week so far. The newest, the newest episode of Open Studio hit yesterday. So that's coming along great. It's starting to pick up speed with me as far as how those paintings work. So the way a painting normally works for me, across the life of its painting, I get really excited when I started because I got this brand new painting and get it all blocked in, and then there's this kind of lull that happens after that as I start to really start to develop stuff. And then what happens is usually I'm looking at the full length of how much time needs to go into a painting, and that usually adds to that lull a little bit. And then about the midway point, I could see where it's going, and it starts to pick up excitement with me again. So the Open Studio painting is at that point right now. So like all I want to do is work on it. I can't do that because I'm recording as I do it, and I'm trying to keep it to like a half an hour a week that I'm working on it to really, kind of keep that in that same vein. So it's a struggle. I want to work on it. I want to finish it. But go check that out. That's on the Open Studio playlist. You can get caught up with that. I think we're on episode 22, I think, or 23. So there you go. All right, let's switch around and we'll get going. All right, let's do it. Let me get this here. All right, so since this is on the bench, I'll show you before we start, and I'll say hello to everyone. So normally, like I said, I don't like to tip my hand on what the 543s are before Monday, but I was working on this one, and I'm like, this would be a really fun one to finish if you guys want to see this. What I ended up doing with this, one of the suggestions was the moon or the Earth in a crescent type thing from the surface of the moon. So this is the first one. And what I need to do is I need to finish all this texture here. I need to basically finish the moon to get this done. So when I get to it, actually you guys can start doing it now. We can either finish the moon, so just type moon in there in the comments, or the other one that I'm working on. Like I said, we started it last week, and I need to get I need to really get this one done entirely. So this is the much bigger gas station painting, and I've already got it all kind of drawn in. So what we'd be working on with this one is kind of working on the sky and possibly those trees. I'll get the trees started during this feed too. So you can either just type in gas station or moon, and then we'll find out which is the consensus across the board, and we'll do that. So while I'm getting set up and saying hello to everyone, jump over here and do that. Oh, that's what I'll do too. Hello. There we go. Yeah, it's easier if I look at comments over here. There we go. Hello, everyone. William, Cody, Dan. What's going on? Tone, what's happening? There we go. Mr. Melton, what's happening? There we go. All right, so what are we looking at? We got one for moon, gas. Lots of gas. Tom, what's a spy balloon? You can't see it, but it's there. It's really small. So that's awesome. All right, let me, we'll turn this on too. No, not that one. We want the palette cam. Let me switch over to that for a second. There we go. That's what I wanted right there. Palette cam. All right. We'll get to that. So let me show you a couple of these two. So I only have two left from this week. In fact, this one is James Melton's suggestion for Lego Batman. So that was one of the ones from Monday night, last Monday. And the other one I have is the skeleton key, which is really just a barrel key or a pin key. But those are the two left. All the other ones had gone. So one of the suggestions from Donna last week was the solar eclipse. And I really love astronomy. So when I get those suggestions, it's hard for me not to pick them, which is where the moon one came from. So I'll check it again in a second to see where we are for suggestions here. Dan wants a gas station. All right, so it's definitely gas station. We're doing the gas station. All right, excellent. So let me show you this real quick because I'm having a blast with it. But if I get real close to this, I'm spending way too much time on this. And again, it's because it's one of my, I really like the subject a lot. So let me get this to focus. But yeah, there's a ton of detail in the moon. In the Earth, there's all kinds of clouds and everything. There'll be a ton of detail on the moon too. So, all right, good. So we're doing gas. I like it. Which is kind of that's what I was starting with last time, but last week. But of course, for the people who are here, I kind of snafu'd myself, and I'll explain that in a second as I get this set up here. We'll get you guys far back because this is a bigger painting. This painting is 11 by 14. And it's still on ampersand. Clayboard comes in all different sizes. So this is an 11 by 14 clayboard panel. And last week, oh, look at that, I got coffee on it already. That's a good sign. So last week I had this started, or I was going to work on this with you guys, but I didn't have any of this kind of, drawn in yet. Let me move this a little bit more like this so you guys can see what's going on. All right. But I got snafu'd because I was at a point where I couldn't really transfer it on. So I showed you guys how I kind of started with all the photographs. These are actual photographs of the gas station. And again, this gas station is gone now. I don't know when they took it down, but my buddy worked at this gas station during the 60s. And so he wanted a painting of the gas station, but there are only a few photos of it. This is one of them. That's actually the owner. He's going in this. Pete is his name. And this is another shot of it. So it's a lot of these photographs that have just like random bits and pieces of it. But what's nice is I was able to thread them all together to come out with this image that was the whole gas station. And essentially what I ended up doing was using this photograph as kind of the cornerstone for it. And I'll show you that in a second. Dwayne, what's up? It is huge. And I'll show you how I transferred this, just so you can kind of see how it goes. So the way it started was, zoom in a little bit. I took like the photo of when it was being built, and I started with that one. So I came out with this sketch first. But then as I was working on this, I ended up not really liking the way that the composition was working. The station seemed too set back, and you seemed like, I don't know. It was enough of it was going to be blocked by the two gas pumps, and it just didn't really work. So that's how I kind of messed around and changed it. This was the original photo of when they were building it back in the 40s. So then what I ended up doing was I ended up using the partial one. I'm looking for my sketch here. I think it's in here. Oh, no, it's still in the copier. Dang it. Yeah, it's on the copier. Can I reach it? Oh, I'm going to stick my fat head in the way. It's not there. Whatever. Anyway, so I kind of sketched this one out this way on a small scale. And then what I was going to do is I was going to project this onto the board like I normally do. What I found was with my little sketch and the projector, when I projected it, there's a lot of stuff you have to clean up with a projector anyway. People feel, again, it's that weird cheat thing, like if you project something and trace the initial drawing, that it makes it all so much easier. It doesn't. The projected image that goes on here needs a lot of refinement, needs a lot of work. And what I found was when I projected my little sketch onto this board, it needed a ton of work. And I'm like, that's not going to be worth it. I'll have to essentially just redraw it. It won't help at all. So what I ended up doing was taking my sketch into Photoshop, which is right here, and I increased the size of it. So it's 11 by 14. So I increased the size of my sketch so that the sketch was now 11 by 14. And then what I did was I just put this on top. Well, I printed it off in 2 sheets. Put this on top, taped it down, put some graphite paper underneath, and then just use this as the guide and trace this all out. And then I was able to go in and refine the whole thing. So again, even when you use the graphite paper, it doesn't give you, like, it's not great what it gives you. So I had to like figure out and draw all the everything else. I had to fill in all the gaps, and that's how I got to where I am right now with this. All right. So before I get into painting this, we are going to change since I'm going to need it. Oh, is it right in front of me? It is indeed. This is my sketch. So that's the sketch I did. And again, that's proportional. What I did was I took the one photograph that I did have that I was going to use, and I essentially brought all the lines out from the perspective of the building and added all that and finished the gas pump that's here and all of that junk. And I took this back into Photoshop, and then I enlarged this to the correct size. So that's how that worked. But before we get started, who else is on? Simon Carter, what's up, buddy? Excellent. All right. Okay. So what I thought I'd do, because it's at that point, and I mentioned this the other day, what happens if I switch to this camera? Ooh, that's very cool. Anyway, this is the palette cam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cover off the wet palette, but it's time to change this parchment. So I was going to do this earlier, but then I thought, you know what, since I'll have you guys here and you guys haven't seen this yet, for anyone who doesn't have a wet palette, this is how it works. So there's a piece of parchment that all the paint is on, and underneath in a second I'll show you that chamois. So what I got to do is I got to get this. A lot of this paint is still liquid, so I don't want to tilt this. I just want to kind of gather it all up so none of the paint drips out, even though this pad underneath has a bunch of paint just on it anyway. And then I just throw that out. So this is the pad underneath. And again, it's got a lot of staining from where the paint kind of got through, but it hasn't really affected it at all. So you can kind of see how thick this is. And like I said, the best way I can describe this, it's like a chamois, but it's like a sponge at the same time. So picture an 1/8 inch thick chamois. That's the best way I can describe it. Although this wet palette is from Redgrass, and they've infused this with some sort of anti-mold material as well. And that's important because this literally stays wet all the time. So you can get a lot of mold buildup. And that's the big problem with the ones that you make for yourself. A lot of people have, I went online and there was a bunch of, do-it-yourself kind of DIY wet palettes. But the problem is if you let this sit, it'll just mold. So one of the cool tricks I was reading on one of the modeler sites is you take copper. This is essentially just copper wire that I have, and I have another one at the top. And I just kind of put this right in here. And for some reason, the copper slows the mold down as well. All right, this is sufficiently wet right now. It's like, it's wet. But it's not soaking wet, it's not floating. So it's right at the right, you want it kind of wet. You want it just like this. You want it kind of that it has moisture on it, but you don't want it floating, essentially. And it's neat how quickly I got used to the kind of how much water to add. It's a kind of a back and forth thing in the beginning, because the first time I did it, I added too much water. The second time I let it dry out, and after a while, I know when to add more water to it. And to make my life easy, what I did was I just put distilled water in one of these little ketchup cap type bottles, so I can literally aim this right in the corner and add the water to it without getting it everywhere. It's pretty cool. There we go. All right. Well, wait. So you made a stencil for that, for this. Oh, for Mark, for the painting, for the gas station painting. No stencils for this one. It'll be all shields and freehand and tape and stuff like that because it's so big. All right. So this is the name of the palette is the Everlasting Wet Palette, and you can buy these parchment sheets with them. I think it comes with a couple of them, or maybe no. I think I bought it and it came with 50 or whatever this is. Not sure, but this is the parchment. And what's funny? When I started posting about this wet palette, I got a lot of comments from people saying, "Oh yeah, you don't have to spend money on the parchment. Just go buy this parchment," or the sponge is this. And you know what? I got two here, but let me show you. That may be true. You might be able to buy this parchment, but this parchment is cut down exactly to the right size with the rounded corners and everything. by the time I find the stuff and then cut it to fit and blah, 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 I'd rather just support the company and buy the actual stuff. So I know you could probably get this stuff, or it's a simple parchment or whatever it is. But for me, it just makes more sense to support them. They've done all the work and they deserve to remain in business. So when I drop this on here, the first thing it does is the parchment will curl up on the edges as it absorbs that water. And you can't see the top of it, but it's really curled at the top too. So you just kind of keep it on the surface until the parchment starts to really absorb that water. It doesn't take very long, and I just pick it up and kind of smooth out the wrinkles too. And that's it. Once it absorbs enough water, it'll stay perfectly flat, like it is up in the front here now. And that's all you do. It's easy as that. So now what's going to happen is, as that parchment pulls the water into it, there'll be, and it's not wet. The only way I can describe it is if you put your hand on this, it feels cool. You can feel the evaporation process, but it's not like when you do this, you don't come up with like wetness on your hands. But there is a small amount of moisture kind of leaching through there. So that's how it works. There you go. All right, so there we go. Oh, what I miss? Almost cheaper to buy what was intended. Yeah, exactly, Mark. And that's the deal. And again, for them, like last time I checked, when I went to go buy this from them, they're in Germany, I think. You can get it if you're in the U.S. Look around because there are local distributors now. But I bought it right from the company, which wasn't the smartest thing because I ended up having to wait a while for it, which is understandable. But yeah, I'm not sure where they are. But anyway, I didn't notice a whole bunch of stuff on their website, like things that they sell. So for me, they're a small company, and I'd really like to support them too. So that was that. All right, so back to it. Make sure you guys are in a good spot here that I can also do what I need to do, and you guys don't get covered in paint. That's also important too. Yeah, so I'm just going to work on this and then see what happens and blah, blah, blah. Oh, there's the, I have them all. So that was the scaled down copy of it that I brought this back into Photoshop and scaled it down to 5x7 because that's the plate on my projector. So I put this right on the projector, and again, a lot of this stuff was really, it wasn't working out for the projector. So I ended up dumping out on that. Paul, if I did not say hello. Franz, hello. What's going on? Excellent. Patty, what's up? All right. Yeah, I'm properly starting off. This one has little bits of coffee on it and everything. That's fantastic. Great. So much for keeping it clean, I guess. Oh, well. Now, the board itself has Autoborn Sealer White on it. There's 4 coats of Autoborn Sealer White, and then the last coat I sanded with 1500 paper. So that smooths it all out and gets it all ready to go. Just want to make sure I'm in the right spot here. Yeah. I'll leave the palette cam off for now because we don't need it. This panel, I started to use it for something else, which is, I would have used Autoborn Sealer on this anyway, but I especially needed to use it because you could see the, well, you guys, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a faint drawing of the other painting that's on here too. So, very cool. All right, so the sky, so here's the deal with this. So when I showed, so some clients, some collectors, when I'm working on stuff, I did a painting for who this guy turned out to be a friend, but I didn't know him when he commissioned the painting at the time, but he's a friend now. But in any event, he asked me to paint a painting of his old Ford pickup, and he wanted it on this street in front of a tattoo place and all kinds of different things. So I gave him sketches as I was working on it so that I knew exactly what he was looking for and made sure we were on the same page. I did that with this one as well because Tony had a very specific idea of what he wanted, so I've been going back and forth with him on the sketch as well. One of the things he wanted was there's a building in the background. It looks like a storefront and a small, looks like apartment up above or whatever. And he wants that kind of pushed back. So in knowing that, in talking back and forth with him, it helps actually set up the whole painting. So what we're going to do with this painting is the background, essentially the sky and the trees and this building in the background are going to have some atmospheric perspective to it. So they're going to be kind of like, they're going to be kind of pastel-y. They're going to have a little bit of that haze on them. Not crazy. We don't want it to look like it's, you know, the jungle. But it's going to help push those things back so that the Sunoco sign pops forward. The building itself will pop forward as well. So knowing that, that sets it up that I know what to do with the sky. So what I don't want to do with the sky is have this brilliant blue sky, you know, this like deep blue sky. So it'll just throw off the fact that these are going to be kind of set in the background. So again, the point of that is just kind of knowing what the customer or the collector is looking for, and that really helps set things up, get you in the right spot. Why did you choose Sealer White this time instead of gray? Dan, that's an awesome question. This is going to be a color painting, and it's easier for me to build the colors on top of white than it would be on top of gray. So I'd have to think more opaquely with the if this was gray and I was trying to pull that back from color. So on the I don't have one. On the 543s, they're all black and white. So essentially that gray that's the base is the mid-tone. I could have done this whole thing in the sky color. That would have been a good idea, because then pulling the sky, you know, these things off of a light blue would have worked. But essentially the average background color for this, white would have worked the best overall. So that's a great question. All right. Tonight's cheers. Yeah, tonight's cheers for my GMT. I have Kentucky Fried Chicken lemonade. It's the reason I was late, because I was having lunch with Marge. She ran out and got fast food, which was fun. So that's what's going on there. All right. The other thing I'm not sold on too with this, or I know it's here because it's in the photo. There's a light that is, or yeah, it looks like a light. It doesn't look structurally strong enough to be like a canopy over the gas, you know, gas pumps. Plus there's only one of them, so I know it's not structural, but so that means it's a light. So I don't know, I don't have any photos of what the top of the light looks like. I also don't know how tall it is. So what I have here is that the light pole is going straight up right off the canvas or the panel. I'm going to leave that like that for now. That's going to be something I can deal with after. I can talk to Tony and maybe find period lights that would match what it was. There's another quick change over here. There's actually, he remembers that they had moved this tire rack and put a phone booth in here, so I got to do that as well. But that's all below the sky, so we're in good shape there. All right, so what I'm going to do with the sky, just like I did with the kind of rocks, underwater rocks painting, I'm going to start with the lightest blue, and I'm going to kind of base this whole thing in. So there's trees all pretty much across the way here, except for the one spot on the peak of this building and then the top of the gas station. So I'm going to kind of mark or kind of mask those off a little bit just to kind of make my life easier. But I'm not going to mask off this whole bottom part. I don't have to do that. I just have to get a little bit of, you know, I just want this little bit of a hard edge. So I want that hard edge there. And it's just in this gap right here too. It's, you know, again, I don't care if I get the tree, the sky color on the tree area. In fact, I kind of want that. So I'll put a couple pieces just because I'll get a little bit of overspray when I get there. And then what I want to do is I want to block off the roof of this building too. Now, I mentioned the pole because what if I had the pole and I had all the answers to this pole, I would then mask off the pole too. It just saves me a little bit of time later. But since I don't have the information on that, and I'm going to have to do all kinds of figuring out anyway, I'm just going to paint the blue right over the pole for now. I'll still be able to see it when I'm done, but this will just, you know, it'll just save me a little bit of time. And since I don't really have a resolution on the top of this, it'll give me time to kind of work that out. All right, I'm gonna clean this one up though. Get the rest of the tape off here. This, of course, is that same tape I used for the 543s. This is FBS Gold, KUTG Gold. And like I said, along the way, it's become my go-to masking material across the board. I really like it a lot. I have bigger rolls of this. Where are they? Do I have it over here? Probably not. No, I don't. But I have a bigger roll of this stuff too. So, all right, so that's good. That'll be good enough for rock and roll. Because all I'm really trying to protect is this area right here, and then the peak of this building right here. So, I think I'm going to use an airbrush for this. I could use the Grex for this. This would be, if I had this whole thing masked off, the Grex, the tritium would be perfect for this. Because what I could do is I could just put in this really even spray across the whole thing. But I think I'll wing it with the airbrush. So, surprised you didn't use Frisket. Yeah, I haven't used Frisket. I don't even own Frisket right now. And I bought that thing. I bought a lot of Frisket. I used it a lot. I haven't used Frisket in years and years and years. So for masking, like I said, I'll use the gold tape, and I'll also use a transfer tape too. So this is clear transfer tape, Sign Makers. This one's made by R-Type. And so this makes a good, just a clear masking. But yeah, I rarely use it now unless there's, a big area that needs to be completely blocked off. So. Yeah, man, I used a lot of Frisket. Holy crap. All right, so what I'm looking for right now, before I get too far into this, so there's that little, I could see the pencil, the halo marks for the pencil, and also there was a repair done up on this corner too. I want to really make sure that this surface is really in good shape. So I'm going to do that right now before I get too far in, because once I put the blue on there, there's nothing that I can really do to fix the surface. Essentially, I have to redo it. So this feels a little bit rough from that repair. What happened was, I think this board took some damage before I even opened it. I think that's what it was, if I remember right. I've had this panel for a while. So when I went to do the original drawing on it, which ended up going on something else, I didn't even use this panel. I think it still has a little bit of, it just has some roughness to the corner here. Now this would be fine. If this was rough and it was going to be framed in a open frame, then it wouldn't matter because this corner would be underneath the frame. But if in case Tony wants to put this in a floater frame, which means you can see all the corners, I want to make sure that this is okay. So again, this is actually 1000 grit. And then I'll just hit it with a little bit of Scotch-Brite after, and that looks really good. So the other thing I want to kind of keep track of are these where I can kind of see the old drawing through it. You can only see it like in a few spots over here. So I think what I'm going to do there is I'm going to hit this with a little bit of white on those two spots to make sure that those pencil lines don't come through. Yeah, that's what it's for, Simon. No, the R-Type is really great for that. So I like their clear masking. I don't use it that often on some of the big paintings, like the motorcycle painting. I was using a bunch of it. But yeah, it's nice stuff. It's gooey. Why is this not staying where I want it to be? I guess I got to put it on the magnet on here. Let's move it up here. So I have a new time lapse for tomorrow. A new time lapse of an old painting, so that'll be fun. So check that out tomorrow. The time lapses have been a lot of fun. I have a lot of photographs, in-process photographs. So I've been just kind of threading them together for these little time lapse paintings. So I got a new one for tomorrow, which will be fun. Where do you find those little sanding pads? Cody, I got those from Amazon. So just look up modeling supplies, and you'll find them. They're super cheap, and they come in all different grits in the same package. I may do a tech. What I'll do, Cody, is if you can't find them by the time I do it, maybe I'll do a Tech Tuesday on that next week. I'll show you the pads, and I'll put the link to where I got them on Amazon. 3M makes a really, really nice, like foam backed, almost like thin foam backed sandpaper, which I really should get. But yeah, those help in a pinch. And for me, with the 543s and the small stuff, those little pads are great. But again, I got them through like Scale Modeler type searches. All right, so I just add a little bit of white to this. Actually, I want a lot of this. Oh, you know what I have? Oh, joy of joys. Huh. Actually, I'm going to back out on this. So I'm going to take that white out of here. So I still have the blue from the Plymouth painting. I'm going to use that because I have a lot of it. So I'm going to just grab the bottle again and just open this up and pour this back in. In the Plymouth painting, that foggy painting that I started, I mixed up a lot of the sky color for that. So that's what I'll use. So get all this out of here. Wet or dry? Yeah, Mark, I think, oh, Tamia, yeah. Oh, that's awesome, Mark. Good to know. It's the other thing I really need to do. Gosh, I used to like be a voracious scale model builder when I was a kid. I would spend all my paper route money. As soon as I would get paid on Saturday, I would immediately ride my bike down to the, we used to have this place called Hobby Town. And I would immediately run down and spend my paper route money on a model airplane, build it, and then play with it till I broke it. And then I would rinse and repeat every week. I would just buy a new model. And it's so funny because as kids, we would each give each other, like my brothers and sister, we would each give, each one of us would buy one gift for the other, you know, like for everyone. So one of my favorite gifts from my older brother, one of my older brothers, when Star Wars came out and all the models started coming out, it was the best Christmas I ever had because he got me a TIE Fighter model, and it was like it made my Christmas. I don't remember what else I got that year. I use them making gesso paper under the sink. That's awesome. Yeah, the 3M is wet dry too. I assume these are. I mean, it's foam on the back, so I'm sure you could, you know, I just don't know the adhesive of them. The material, but I'll do a Tech Tuesday on these, and I have an old sheet of the 3M stuff, but I'll bring that out too. All right, so let's do it. Maybe Gary here to yell at me to start painting. Oh, panels, because gesso paper would be really cool too. Like if you were to gesso the Yupo, that's what I thought you were going for with that, Mark. Yeah, this is a good color. It's super pale blue, but it's going to make a great base for this. Again, because I had talked to Tony and I know he wants these buildings like really pushed back, I really want to keep the sky very, very pale. My tendency with a lot of paintings, it's actually got kind of a lot of purple in it. I'm going to back up again. So this Plymouth, I forgot how much purple this has in it, and I don't want to just throw this on there. So back to plan A. What could go wrong? And you guys think I have this all under control? I never have this under control. All right, so the white paint, I'm going to grab the Daylight Blue from Createx. Love the old school Star Wars models. I used to have them Falcon, but never managed to get Simon. Me too. Yep, we had all the small ones. I remember the old C-3PO model with the elastics holding it all together. I had that. I was kind of bummed that my brother got the R2-D2. I really wanted the R2-D2, but I got C-3PO. What else did we get? And then when I was older, I started buying my own. So, oh, this is much better. Okay. So that's just a really pale sky blue. That's what I should have done in the beginning, but, you know, try to save some time and ends up costing you twice, so there you go. Svi, what's up, buddy? Hopefully, Svi, I'm supposed to be going. I'm going into Kent or the college on Saturday to help Marge out with her school with her show. And then we're going to hit some lunch, but I'm hoping I'll be back in time for your feed on Saturday. And of course, tonight, if you haven't seen it or haven't been paying attention, Scott McKay has his Down and Dirty Tricks tonight on YouTube. So catch that too. I missed Tim last night. Tim has his feed on Wednesday nights every Wednesday, the Ink Flingers. So I did miss that last night, but it's usually a good show. And I'm getting all distracted. So there's a little bit of pencil from the other painting or drawing underneath. It's right there too. So before I put the blue on, just to make sure. that blue should cover it, but I don't want to take any chances again because it's going to be a nightmare to fix if I don't, because this is going to be one even fade of blue, like a slightly darker blue to lighter blue. So if that shows through, that's going to suck. So I'm going to make sure that that doesn't. So I've got some opaque white in here, and I'm just going to kind of go back and forth on the two areas where I can kind of see the pencil lines coming through. The sealer should have taken care of that, but I just didn't put enough of it on. What's up, Steve? Yeah, so back to the scale modeling stuff. It would be really, really fun if, because it's funny because I have a couple Star Wars, I bought some more Star Wars models, but they've been sitting in the bin, like the to be done bin. What I really should do is make that one of the projects and just do a video of kind of painting those. Man, it's funny because when I used to build them, I was like most kids, I had like one bottle of paint, maybe a paintbrush. So most of the models that got put together had no paint on them. They were just built. But now it's funny that, things have come so far since I, was a kid, and that I didn't get my first airbrush till really after I was not done building scale models, but I was in college when I got my first airbrush, so I wasn't building scale models then. I think, do I have it over here? Because I think I need something a little bit more guts, but I don't have anything over here with a little bit more guts, so I'm going to have to use white again. All right. That's awesome, Dwayne. Yeah, no, I wish I had. I would have been airbrushing for an additional, 10 years if I had done that. So what I did was I have a, I don't remember off the top of my head who makes them, but go figure, one of them, the model companies makes a bunch of really small scale, there's this real small scale Death Star, it's only about this big. And then it comes with a small Star Destroyer as well, so of course I grabbed it. So I have a plan for it, but maybe I'll start with that. I have an X-Wing as well, and a small Darth Vader TIE Fighter that I also have a plan for. So maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll get going on those. Oh, I know, me too. Yeah, William, I'm right there. Yeah, God, so breathing so much enamel paint, it was crazy. And then what I would do is when I was a kid, because like I said, I was a kid, and I would buy these models and then build them and play with them until they broke, and then I would take the bits and pieces and I would scratch build new stuff out of them. It was a lot of fun. And then somehow, I don't know, I started airbrushing. I really wasn't building any scale models, and the two really never kind of crossed paths at all, which is weird. You would think they would have. They came close. When I was working for Bear Air, I would do a lot of shows, and the shows I loved the most were the scale model shows. So it should have kind of got me back into it, but it was just a timing thing. And it's also what I tell people all the time, when people are frustrated about not being able to get enough time to do these things. The scale modeling in my life is exactly the same thing as I tell people all the time. Like airbrushing for me, it's set up. Well, I mean, I do this all the time. This is what I do. But my airbrush stuff is always set up. So all I have to do is turn on the lights and go. Even if I wasn't doing it for a living, this is what would have to happen for me to do airbrushing, because it's so like equipment intensive. If I had to set everything up every time, I wouldn't get anything done. I just wouldn't. It's just the way it is. So the scale modeling is a perfect example of that for me. All my scale model stuff, all the tools and everything, except for the airbrushing and paint, but all the tools and all the scale models, they're all tucked in a box on the shelf. So as long as I don't take them out, I'm never going to kind of get into it. So 543 Death Star, that'd be awesome. It's not a moon. All right. I have a plan for that. And, again, this is a problem with me. I come up with these projects and then I have a specific plan that I want for it, and it becomes more and more evolved, and then I just end up not doing it because it's too involved, and there's a hair in here, which kind of sucks, but there's a hair right there, really tiny. So I'm going to take care of that too. So again, this is just 1,000 grit. It's stuck in the paint, but it's not super crazy stuck in the paint, so that's all it takes. All right, so now I get the blue. So that white, I can't see the pencil marks anymore. I mean, they're barely there, but they're not going to show up now. So I pretty much guaranteed that I took care of that, which is good because, again, if I get this real nice pale blue over the whole thing and then I can see the pencil lines through it, I'm screwed. I literally have to, get base coat sealer or tinted blue or whatever to get that out of there. But now I don't have to worry about it. All right. I have the pencil drawing for the trees. I don't have to mask any of the trees off because the trees sit on top of the sky anyway. And I want some of this blue to kind of creep in and out of the trees. So I'm just going to kind of run over the whole thing with this. Patty, that's awesome. Thank you for jumping in. I know you should. Patty's Little People are amazing. There's a rumor of a company re-releasing the old D'Agostini Millennium Falcon model again. That would be amazing. That's one that I'm with you guys. I missed out on that when I was a kid just because it was, more money than I could have spent as a kid. But yeah, I might, yeah. That old TIE Interceptor model too. I would have loved to. I don't remember who made that. I would love to find one of those. So even at this point with this blue, it's a little bit darker than I want, but that's okay. I just got to get something down on this so that I can start adjusting it. I do want to kind of be careful as I get closer down near here. There's a lot of stuff going on down there. But again, I'm gonna add a lot of white on this down at the bottom too. So again, if you've been following me, to put, I guess not a face with a name, or this is more of a painting with a person. So this painting is for the same person. If you remember 3 years ago, I did a painting of a white 63 Corvette convertible. That's Tony's car, the guy who's doing this. I've also done a couple other paintings for him too. Him and his brothers were into racing when they were kids, so and they always had nice cars, and his brothers still do. So I've done paintings of all his brothers' cars as well. So he's what's nice is he was a friend before he was a collector. So Tony and I go way back. In fact, the Three Amigos painting, the one that's on sale right now, which is a shameless plug of the motorcycle with the shiny motorcycle. I just posted it. Tony, this guy here, Tony is one of the reflections in the tank. We were hanging out, when that photo was taken. So my skies never turn out. I start too dark, I think. Yeah, that's exactly it. I think, and I'm guilty of that too. I get them kind of unusually blue, like Neptune blue. But yeah, that's not uncommon. All right, so I've got the whole thing covered with this real pale blue now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on the horizon, essentially, which you can't see through the trees. So I'm not even going to clean this out. I'm just going to add white to it. So I'll get a real pale blue. Now there aren't going to be any clouds in this painting either. Well, I'll check that. There might be, but I'm not planning on it. So the good news is the clouds, I could just put them in any time. But again, I don't want, if I put like really nice white clouds in here, that's going to draw attention to the background. It's going to bring the background into the whole painting essentially. So that's also going to pull this building up too. So if I have this beautiful sky with puffy clouds and everything, and I have this guy pale down here, it's not gonna look right. So what I have to do is I really have to keep the sky a really, really pale blue so that the gas station pops out and everything else I can push back. Fortunately, this building is kind of, it looks like it's a white building. I don't have a color photo of this building, but it looks white, maybe another color, gray or green or something. And that's fortunate. If this was a dark colored building, like if it was dark green or dark blue or something, then that would be tough. But it's light colored, so I'll be able to push it right back. All right, so now I get the white in here, and I'm just really kind of going over the, like half of this, like this area right here, across the board. And I'm going over this really lightly. I'm letting it build up, and I can't even really see it being applied. I can hear that the paint is coming out. I can see it because of the, the overspray here. So I know it's coming out, but I'm going really light with it to kind of keep it nice and even. So this is going to do two things for me. One, it's going to start lightening up the horizon, which will help push that back. Plus, it'll also even out the whole thing. So whereas some areas the blue might not be as even as it should be, this white will kind of fill the gap. And I run it up about halfway, and then I just fade it off a little bit. So I'm going to leave this as the sky blue color. Because keep in mind, I didn't take the blue out of here, so there is some blue in there. So this is really, really pale blue. There's a little smudge right up in here too that I should have addressed. And that's kind of exactly what I was talking about with the drawing underneath. To fix that smudge right there, it's going to be a bit of a chore. So what I'm going to do for that is I still have, I'm not going to clean out the brush. I'm going to add a little bit of white in here again. Just make sure I got all the white done. And then I'm going to kind of fade from here over with the white. And what I'm going to do is, this is purely repair right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fade from white over to here. The smudge is right there. So I'm going to fade over with the white into this area here until I get that smudge covered. And then as soon as I'm done with that, which won't take much, it's there, but it's just barely there. Once I get that covered, then I'll go back to a pale blue, start here and fade over, and then it'll take care of the whole thing. Yeah, Mark, I don't know if there is a really proper way. I think the sky is one of those things that, I was talking about in Open Studio and some of the other paintings. The sky is something that our brain interjects its opinion on all the time when we're working. So again, you have this mental, your brain wants to jump in and tell you everything it knows about the sky. And then when you go to paint that, it amplifies everything. Skies are too blue, or the clouds are too cloud-like or puffy or whatever. So I think that's a big hang-up with doing skies. A lot of times it's, your brain just on overdrive to try to inject all this stuff into it, and that makes it look unnatural. All right, so that repair is done. But now I've got this, it's not obnoxious, but it does go from like a lighter blue to the whitish blue. So I'm going to grab a little bit of, can I turn that back on? Yeah. I'm going to put a little bit of the blue, sky blue here, daylight blue. So the way I don't set up my palette in a certain way, like like an artist palette, they'll sometimes do like complementary colors opposite each other, or they'll run essentially the rainbow across so that you have colors that are similar next to one another. I don't do that with this because I swap it out so much. The only thing one thing I always do though, is I'll usually have white and black down here. Since I use those the most, I leave the bottom section down here for white and black for mixing, but all the colors will usually go up top, but there's no particular order for that. So I put the the blue on the palette because I just need a tiny bit of it. If I just put a whole drop in here of blue, so if I have the white and I put a whole drop in there, it's going to be really dark. But if I can just go to the palette and pick out a little bit of it, then I can really control how much blue I get in here. So grab a little bit more. Again, it's better to sneak up on it than to, if it goes too dark, then I have to add white to it, and it's going to take a lot of white to come back from it. So it's just easier to do it this way. I think I got to go a little bit darker on that. It's not going to take much. It's just, I want it close. So I'm trying to mix up the same blue that I have up here now. So once I actually start the trees, I got to be sold on where the sky is. So I got to make sure of that. And I think I'm going to be okay. What I can do, if I put all the trees in and I find I need to go darker with the sky a little bit, I do have some leeway because most of the sky, you know, is showing here. So I could fade it down. Plus these trees are going to be fairly dark. So if I would add some blue to it, that blue would mix in with the tree color anyway if it was faded enough. All right, let me get some of this going. So again, it's just a balancing act at this point. It's trying not to overdo it so that you can keep adjusting it as you go. So I'm going to go real light up on the top part here. And what I'm doing is I'm fading it this way. So as I'm moving it across, I'm fading into the blue that's already there. But again, I'm going really light and I'm just kind of keeping my eye on it. So that essentially what I'm doing is just catching up the repair to the rest of the blue. And then when I get it real close, then I can run this color across the whole top of it. And then now we'll just kind of even everything out so there isn't like a, you know, blob here and a blob there. This makes it a little better. All right, I think that's good. Now, okay, so that's good. What I'm going to do with this though, in a few spots, I'm just going to add some blue spots into where the trees are, so that so when I add gaps in the trees, you'll see the sky through it. This whole thing is covered, so I don't have to worry about that. All right. Trees. Now I got to figure out what I'm doing with the trees. All right, so fortunately what I have here is the photo, the black and white photo, which gives me enough idea what's going on here. Let me pull it out. It's fun. It's kind of like being a private eye, you know. You gotta, or a, you know, like a investigator. You try to put these images back together and fill in the gaps. Where is it? Oh. Okay. All right. So here's what I got. All right, so there's the photo that I'm working from. That was the base for the corner right here. So I can see the trees here, and there's that two-tone building that we're going to push back. This had to have been taken in the early 60s too, by the looks of the cars. So these trees are what I'm looking at right here and a little bit there. So that gives me kind of the marching orders for what's going to go on in my painting. The other one that I can take from too is, here's another photo too, same kind of deal. The sky's a lot darker than what I have, but see how dark those trees are? So that's kind of what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with a darker tree color to get that to work. And then the other trees that I have behind the building here, I stole from this photo here. I assume they didn't cut down these trees. So that's how I got the gap between them right here. So I just use those as the guide. So again, it's like kind of weeding out the unimportant information and then just kind of weaving together the important information. Police work to other people, Chris, you got it. All right. So, same deal here. Here's the rub. if I want to push back this building, I can't have these trees be really, really bright, like really dark and intense. So I'm going to have to mess around with it. So what I think I'm going to do to start is start with a darker green color and then build the actual light part of the leaves as we go. And I think the best way to tackle this is to just paintbrush it. I think. Yeah. All right, so I'll leave the palette cam on because we'll need that. So my go-to green for this kind of stuff is just shake it up, is Detail Moss Green. I love this color. It's just a good natural green color. It's not, you know, I mean, Limelight Green is fun, but you know, I don't get a chance to use it that often. And then even the Phthalo Green is, so as I can grab it here, it fell over. Phthalo Green is really, really strong too, but it's very vibrant as well. So you have to fight back a lot to get it to work. I'm just looking for, see what I have for crappy brushes. I just think I have my mixing brushes for crappy brushes, but that'll work. So I'm going to squeeze out a bunch of this green because I'm going to use a lot of it across the board. And then what I want to also have here is a little bit of black. Some black. Do I need white? I do need white. I'm going to introduce a little bit of white too to help kill it. Again, it's that vibrancy, and you want the paint out of the bottles to be, you know, really vibrant and strong. It's a much better place to start from when you're working to mix your own colors. If you I love, we just talk about modeling. There are so many colors in scale modeling. Like, I always think it's interesting that that a lot of scale modelers can't mix their own colors. They have to buy the exact color they need. You know, and I know some of it's historical, but even if it's historical, you should be able to match that color. So, you know, you look at the number of SKUs in a scale model type of situation, and there are just hundreds of bottles of different colors. So for me, I'd rather have a bunch of strong basic colors and then be able to mix everything I need. And then I have an endless amount of colors that way. So, all right, so let's get this going. So I need some green to start. You can see this is like a yellowish, just a nice overall green. So I'm going to add some white to kind of start to kill that. And I'm also going to add some black to it too. Now this black, I've mentioned this a billion times. The black has a lot of warmth to it, has a lot of brown in it. So the black and the white just kind of pull it back down from being as intense as it should be. And I'm going to run this a little bit lighter than I probably need to start. So, and I want to get a real dry brush here too. So I'm going to grab just a paper towel and kind of bleed off some of the paint. And then I can just start coming over here and dropping this in. Now, first thing you'll notice is how dark this really feels, where on the palette, if you look at that, it looks really light and bright, but on the painting, it looks completely different. So that's, you know, the relativeness of that color. It's against the blue and what's going on here. It just automatically feels a lot darker than it looks on the palette. James. Oh, you're welcome, buddy. That's awesome. Oh, Mark, I hope you're feeling better, man. Yeah, have a good one. Rest up, dude. All right, so what I'm doing is now, this isn't a one and done thing. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see what's going on here. This isn't one and done by any stretch. It's layer and layer and layer over and over and over again to build up these trees. Get you really closely in there. That's better. So keep that in mind too. It's not like just drop it in there and then it's done. So for this is my clean out my airbrush brush. And this is perfect for this because it's all banged up. It was a nice acrylic brush, an artesian Winsor Newton brush. But it got just beat up from being used all the time, but it makes a perfect leaf brush. All right, This color worked out great. I mean, it's yeah, it's just what I want. But a lot of times it won't be, so I'll have to readjust it. But this is a good time to do that. You know, when I just started here, if anything looks sideways, if the color isn't quite right, I can always blow through it. I can just change it, and I didn't put too much down. So, but this color is perfect. This is working out really well. I think I might, to save myself the aggravation, I might mask off the rest of this building here just to keep the edge really clean. And I'm spinning the brush as I'm doing this, even though this brush is all mangled up and has a lot of really cool natural type, edges and stuff to it. I'll do it right here. If I keep the brush in the same spot and move it across, it's going to give a very similar, even though they're different, it's going to give a very similar like brush stroke feel to it. So I don't want that at all. I want to keep it really natural looking. So I'll twist the brush as I'm doing this. Plus I'll also sometimes come at a little bit more of an angle from one way or another. And that really helps to keep that organic and natural. I really don't want that, machine gun sewing machine look to it. It's like Bob Ross 23. Happy little trees. Yeah, no kidding. I also try to keep these, I would rather build up complexity in color by layers on the surface than layers on the palette. The big reason for that is, like, I know what's in this color right here. You saw it. It was just moss green, white, and black. A little bit of both, all three of those, and that's how I came up with this. So when I run out of this, to mix more of this is really easy. If I mix a super complex color to get this, and then I run out of it, it's just a drag. So I would rather make the really complex color on here. So the next pass, for instance, will have maybe some yellow ochre in it or a little bit of brown or whatever. And I'll do the same thing, and I'll just keep building those layers up of the leaves. That's where the complexity will come in. And I like that a lot better because it's a lot more easier to maintain over the whole painting. Thanks, James. Yeah, I'm looking forward. I have another big commission. Well, I'm not sure yet, but I've been talking to a really great guy. I did a small painting for him, and he was saying that he's looking at having something bigger done, and I think he feels that he's going to do that. So I really want to get this painting well underway before he decides to pull the trigger on his, because I think having two of these major paintings going on at the same time is not necessarily what I want. I mean, I certainly will, but rather have this painting well underway. So I'm just going to mask off the rest of this real quick. Just makes it easier to keep it clean. I mean, we don't really have to, because when I go to paint in the building itself, it's not going to be that big of a deal to just run across, but again, it saves a little bit of effort. There we go. And when I won't do the trees right here, but when I get down to those, there's a bit of the building there. I'll mask that off as well. William, I love it, man. Yeah, keep me honest. Keep those coming. And I have a lot of respect for Bob Ross. I do not have a lot of respect, and I know there are always three sides to every story. So if you saw the Bob Ross documentary that came out, basically explaining the bum business deal that he got and how his family is paying for it now. I know there are three sides to every story, so if you take what was in that story to heart, his passion was painting, and he just he got in with the wrong people who took advantage of him. That's why today I will never buy anything with Bob Ross's name on it, ever. All the cute stuff that they have, because none of that goes to his family. The people who had bought the rights essentially to use his name and own all of that. His family doesn't see any of that. So regardless of what they say. Now, the only reason I say, like I said, I know there are three sides and I don't know all the sides, but when I was younger and I just graduated from, I graduated from high school, college, and it was early on. I worked in this really, really big art store. And so there was a lot of connection with the art, the whole art supply industry, because this place was big. And all I can say is that the stories that were portrayed in that documentary on Bob Ross and what was going on with his name, those were the stories I heard back then too. So that led me to have the opinion that what was in the documentary was pretty much what was really going on. So I'm concerned about you. You mentioned detective working, stealing, and now pulling. What could go wrong? So Bob Ross is a person. I mean, at first I had a kind of a lukewarm feeling to Bob Ross when he first came out, because I used to watch his mentor, which is Bill Alexander. This crazy, I don't even know what nationality he was. If anyone remembers what nationality Bill Alexander was. But he had this great accent and he was like super animated and he really, the style that he worked in is the style that Bob Ross learned. So that wet on wet technique and all that was all Bill Alexander. And then Bob Ross ended up kind of going out on his own with the same thing. So when Bob Ross really came out and the show was on, I'm like, he's ripping off Bill Alexander. That's not cool. Now, I don't know what the whole story is there either, but so my initial feeling about Bob Ross when he first started doing what he was doing was pretty cool. But, there's no denying that he brought art to a lot of people and that may not have thought they could do it. So there's definitely something to be said for, what he brought to the table. German, that's it. William, that seemed too easy, but yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. Yeah, he'd be like, "I fire it in there," and he'd be like smashing the canvas with his brush, and he was just awesome. I loved him. I used to be on PBS, and I would come home from school and just watch him do his thing. There was another dude, local dude to me in Boston called Captain Bob, and Captain Bob had a Saturday show where he would do the same thing. He wasn't a painter, he would draw, and you would draw along with him, and he was mostly nature-based, so it was always animals or something. God, I would just like get my 4.5 broken crayons and the back of a letter that was sent, and I would do my best to keep up with him. He was a really cool guy. Bob Caudle was his name, yeah. There's a Bob Ross Experience Gallery somewhere that has a large chunk of his paintings on display. The Smithsonian owns 4 of them, I believe, too. Yeah, what's really interesting, Svi, he is, I mean, obviously everyone knows, he was just massively prolific. I mean, he just had, it wouldn't be unreasonable to think there were thousands of Bob Ross paintings. I know these people who own his name have a bunch of them, but it is excessively hard to find one, like a real one for sale, which is interesting. Like I guess the story was he would have 2 or 3 of the same paintings for the show. Like he'd have one already finished and then he'd have another one and then the one he'd actually do for the show. And what I heard was that a lot of those paintings, when they were done, would go to the television station and they would be used to raise money or whatever. But yeah, I guess it's tough to find an actual Bob Ross painting. I did look a little bit just because I thought it would be fun. But yeah, a little smudge on there. All right, so that's pretty much the first round on that. I'm going to, since this isn't really a demo, this is me working, I'm going to keep going on this normally what I would do is if it was like a Monday night, I would go on to the next step on those trees. But I'm going to keep painting. I'm going to keep doing this stage on the tree so I don't have to recreate this color later. I worked in retail art supplies during college. Also, a corporation drilled in our heads that Bob Ross was a mean-hearted thief, and watching the movie I see things differently. Yeah, but that's exactly it, Chris. I was like, what? Yeah, I always thought that he was just kind of like riding on the coattails of Bill Alexander. But and in some ways he was, like I said, his style of painting was exactly what Bill Alexander taught. It was his method. So there is that, but there's no denying that Bob Ross just took it to, his own level. I mean, it wasn't only that the painting style was accessible to a lot of people, which is the whole point of doing that type of painting, that anyone can do it kind of thing. Bob just had a charisma that was undeniable, for that kind of thing. Yeah, that if you haven't seen the documentary, I think it was Netflix. Yeah, it was a good watch. I was pleasantly surprised at the info that I got out of it. Like, I always wondered what happened to his son Steve. He had his son Steve on a couple times, and Steve was also an artist and was able to paint the same way Bob did, but then Steve disappeared. You never really saw anything of him, and then they kind of filled in the gaps with the documentary on what happened, or where he's at and what he's doing and stuff. So teaches more than art. Yeah, that's that was the thing. With Bob, his charisma was what it was, and he had no problem poking fun at himself at the same time. I had a whole different, like Chris, I had a whole different kind of respect for him later on that I didn't necessarily have when he was doing his thing. I mean, he was kind of a character of himself, really, but yeah. This is swimming. It's coming out swimmingly. Even now, just when I back this out, I'll show you, but even now, just this color alone sets everything up. It's gonna really, it's gonna be a good thing. If I wanted to push the background harder and make it more part of the painting, this initial color would be a lot darker, almost like black, really. But this color is working out to be a good base color. And if you want to see an example of that, if you go on my website and look up the print of there's the big print that I have. The trees in that are what I'm talking about here. Those trees, when I did that initial step, the step I'm doing right now, it was almost black. I mean, it was like a super, super dark green. Because if you look at that painting, it's brilliant. I mean, the whole thing is like color everywhere. And it was color from the foreground all the way into the background. So that's why it kind of worked out that way. What about the guy in California? He paints a lot of underwater scenes, big murals, forgot his name, awesome artist. Weiland? Weiland is the, he's amazing with the mural stuff, and it's all sea life stuff, so I think that might be who you mean. Yeah, his stuff is crazy. So I grew up, he had done one mural in Boston, and so I grew up seeing that mural almost every day. I don't even know if it's still there, but yeah, I think his stuff is everywhere. In fact, I think I know he has a gallery in Hawaii, and I'm pretty sure that Dennis Mathewson, who we all know and love, is represented by one of the Weiland galleries. So now for these trees back here, like the ones that are right down off the camera here. This brush is too big for that, so I'm gonna leave those. I'm gonna leave those and do those after. Yeah, Wyland, that's it. Yep. All right, so that's good for the first pass. So I guess I am going to be able to move on with this. All right, so next thing I'm going to do, let me jump back to the main group here. Like there. I might back you guys up a little bit now that you kind of get the feel for what's going on with this. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to darken this up a little bit. So I'm going to take some of the black and mix this out. Maybe that was too much. That's okay. Yeah, that is too much, but that's all right. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to darken that up a little bit, dry that out. And now I'm going to use this, this darker color to kind of go in and set up some of the, like the shadows that will be like deep inside the tree. I don't want to do this everywhere. I just want to like pick and choose my battles here. So these are the leaves that would be on the other side of the tree essentially. And they'll get kind of blocked off by the really light leaves that'll come on after. So again, it's just kind of pick and choose. I don't want to do this everywhere. I want to keep this pretty random. I can also use this to close up some of the gaps if there are too many of these gaps through here. I'm not worried about branches. I mean, I could throw a few in, but in the end, it's not going to make any difference. Money's payback. All right. So it's killing me. Chris, you're on. You watch Nub all the time. So Nub from Nub Graphics is on Tuesday nights as well. I saw Bill Snagan was on earlier yesterday. I got to catch him finally. Did a great painting, or is working on a great painting of close-up of a rose. And then I was watching Nub, and he was talking about they were trying to get a class going at his shop. Painting guitars, so he's going to have Mike Learn there, and they're going to be the goal is, and so hopefully sometime in June they're going to have this class where you have a raw guitar and you paint it with Mike and Nub, and you get to take it home when you're done. So that is going to be an amazing class. Unfortunately, when they're talking the end of June, we usually go take our vacation, one of our vacations, the first week of July. So unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to sneak in. But I was telling Marge last night, if I had all the time and money in the world and could work that out, that would be a great class to take. A lot of fun. If you're not familiar with Mike Learn, you should be. So just look up Learn Airbrush. And he's not only just an amazing guitar player, he is an amazing guitar player. What I was going to say was he's not only an amazing airbrush artist, he's also a great guitar player and a luthier too. So he builds all his own guitars, and it's not just hobby building guitars. This man builds some serious guitars. So I realized I'm an airbrush unfit. Busy this week with portrait workshop, finishing tomorrow. Oh, good. All right, so you get the idea? It's just kind of like popping these darker areas in. Again, I don't want to do it everywhere. I just want to kind of pick the areas that I want to like push back in the tree. Another interesting thing that happened with this board, and I don't know why, but it actually is curling, not curling, but it's bending up a little bit this way. So it's kind of like concave a little bit. And I don't know why that happened with this. I've never had it happen with a board. It's not a big deal. It'll flatten out once I frame it, but yeah, it's unusual. Now the idea behind this painting too, when I was talking to Tony about, you know, as we were talking about finishing it up, there are people he wants to give this image to, so I think I'm going to make prints of this. So keep that in mind. If this, I know, you know, you won't have specific ties to this gas station, but if it's something that you may want, I could probably talk Tony into having us make up a few extras. So if you're into old 60s gas stations. And as promised, the Island Creek painting, on my next trip home, I'm bringing that painting with me, and we're going to have prints made of that too. So again, like I talked about in the beginning of the year, my goal for 23 is to really get the prints ramped up so that there are lots of options on the site for prints. They're a lot of work. They're a lot of work to set up, which is why I don't have a ton of them. But I'm, like I said, I'm really going to make an effort to make sure that I get those going. All right, don't forget the neighbors from the hub. Yeah, I know, Chris. That's why I thought of you, because you know you're right there. But yeah, I don't know if I can swing that if they do. And I'm not saying this so that by any stretch so they'll change the date, because you know I don't know that I could swing it either way. But it might be fortunate that it's that week for me. keep me from getting a guitar. All right, and I just got this one little one down here. I'll tilt this up so you can see without having to move everything. Again, this brush is too fat to do the ones that are down way in the background, so I'll just leave it at that. All right, so there's that. You guys are going to see all the trees, which is nice. I'm glad. All right, so final step for these is going to be the lightest part of these trees. So the sun is, it looks like it's like, it looks really noontime. Oh, that's interesting. All right, so I told you that here's my little photograph, and Tony, I have the tire rack right here behind Pete. So Tony had said this, I just realized this is the phone booth he was talking about. They had moved this phone booth back to where the tire rack was. So I got to do that. But that's cool. I just realized that. All right, last step is the lightest part of these trees. Now, it's what I'm going to do. Well, I'll just show you. It's like, shut up, Steve, just do it. So it's the same green. The only thing I'm going to add now, I'm going to mix up some, or not mix up, I'm going to put out some detail yellow ochre on here to give that the lightest part some yellow. And then I'm going to mix up a nice bright highlight color. So we'll get some of that yellow in there, like that. I would even add black to this if I had to, but I don't think I do. The black, what that'll do is, again, the black will neutralize the intensity of the color. Now, obviously it'll make it darker, but yeah, I wouldn't add a whole ton of black to it, just enough to take the bite out of the yellow. So, but I don't have to do that with this. I'm going to try this with this brush, but I may end up switching brushes. I am going to switch brushes because this brush is too big for this. So do I have a little brush that will work over here? I do have them on the other side. Yeah, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to just grab another brush, because what I have is, I'll show you. I have either my airbrush cleaning brushes like this, or I have my detail brushes. I need something that's kind of right in between those two. Because if I use the teeny brush, it'll take, you know, the next 27 hours. Fortunately, they're right here, though, so I don't have to go far. Okay. Excellent. All right. Ooh, yeah. All right. So these are the two I grabbed. One is, this is a sable brush. This is a cheaper watercolor brush. It's again, it's made by Winsor Newton, but it's not a fantastic brush. It's still sable, so it's nice, but it's also seen the end of its life. It's all mangled. And then the other brush I have is one of the Tidwell brushes. So this is a synthetic brush. You can tell by you can tell by the spring in it. It just holds up a lot nicer, but they're both about the same size. So let me try the sable brush first. This might be too, sable brush might be too froofy. No, it'll work. It's just not as ground up as I need it. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop some of this in here and take a look at it, and I'll zoom in so you can see what I'm doing here. What I need is a brighter yellowish, whitish color. This is not bright enough. So I'm just going to add some more white to this. Add some more white to this. Palette this in really good. And then I can add some of these highlights. That's better. Okay. But I need, this brush may not be the right choice either. So with this, I want to just add some highlights in the leaves. And again, it just adds to this complexity that's going on here. So it's not just the green, you know, that first green that I put down. It now has, you know, the yellows in it and a little bit of white. This is not 100% opaque, so so the green will pop through in some spots too, and it'll just kind of give me a overall highlight on this. And I want to pull this out over the darker areas too, so it pushes them back as well. The detail's backed up now, nice. Yeah, this brush may be too big too, but that's okay for now. So again, anywhere where I think the green is kind of like just blobbed on there from the other brush, I can use this to kind of refine those shapes and carve into them or paint over them. It just works well to kind of like help refine what's going on here. Same thing with this brush though. You know, I have to turn this brush or twist it and bend it, you know, so I don't get the same cookie cutter look to it, because I don't want that. Sure, yeah, you guys are good. I had to quickly look over to see if I'd moved off the camera again. Now again, you know, overall, even though the dark that I added in there was really dark, the overall feel of these leaves are pretty light. So I think I've done a good job at kind of balancing that out. Again, because I have a super pale blue sky, I don't want these leaves to be really dark like they really should be if I were to really push the background. So in a way, I get to tone this down. Now there is one more trick that I could do, but I don't think I need to. Say I put all these trees in, and I'll show you after, but say I put all these trees in and I'm looking at it and I don't know if they're still like too saturated. They still pop forward too much. I can go over all these trees with the light blue. Just, I mean, not like hose it down. Oh, sorry, the thing is sagging again. Not hose the thing down, just put a really light layer of blue on them, which I may still end up doing. And that will kind of push everything back. Oh, thanks, Chris. Yeah, I mean, it's all part of it. I think it's, you know, there are people that all they do is with their art is the airbrush, but just like there are people that all they do with their art is a paintbrush or palette knife or whatever. I don't know. It just, for me, it's more about just kind of grabbing the tool that will do the job. That being said, you know, you need to put in the time of each tool to get out what you need to get out of it. So there is that, you know, the danger of, you know, jack of all trades and master of none type of thing. But yeah, I'm not the kind of person that I should preface this. If someone only uses an airbrush, I can certainly be impressed by the quality of the painting and the effort that it would take to do it only with an airbrush. However, for me, it's more about the final bit of art. You know what it finally is, more than how it was done. And I say that being the most like, you know, I love the technical aspect of it. I love looking at someone's painting and being like, oh my gosh, how did you do this? I love that. But I also understand that for the most part, that's not what the art is about. The art is mostly for the person who's just looking at it, you know, who's getting something out of the story or whatever. It's the technique is only exciting for the people that also do it, I guess. Franz, have a great night. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Power reduction for 2 hours. Yeah, all right. Well, relax and enjoy the power. We call them a brownout here, when they purposely, you know, throttle back the power because everyone's using heat and air conditioning or whatever. But so, yeah, good thing to sleep through it. That's a good thing, Franz. Thank you for dropping by. James, and that's exactly what I'm trying to say, but not saying it very well. It's whatever tool gets it done for me. Again, like when I see someone who does all their stuff with just an airbrush and they've got some crazy details and just, I know what it took to get that, I am impressed. I mean, it makes me happy. However, if you put two paintings side by side and then ask someone who doesn't airbrush, you know, what they think, no one's going to care whether it was done just with an airbrush or not. The airbrushers will, and I am one of those, but I don't know. For me, it's like I said, it's the end game. It's whatever the painting should look like in the end. And fortunately, like I don't hear it a lot anymore, but I'm sure, you know, people still do it. There is some real heavy like tool prejudices. I guess airbrushes used to get a lot of it, because so if you were a fine artist, if you were, you know, in that gallery type setting and you were using an airbrush, you were totally cheating, which is ridiculous. But that was the thing. It was seen more as a novelty than anything. So thankfully, like I don't get that anymore. I get the novelty of it. Like people will be like, oh, how does that work? You know, people who don't know. But the prejudice to it is not a thing anymore for me, which is nice. All right, so there's the rest of the trees done. And well, for that part anyway. We'll move down to these trees over here. We'll get these done and we'll be in good shape. These, not holding up well. All right, there we go. Magnets aren't really doing its job. Oh, James, that makes me happy. I'm glad. You guys are still pretty close. You guys are only about 10 inches away. So for this painting, again, this is not a micro painting. So the trick with this type of stuff for me is also to learn when to tap the brakes. An average size painting for me is this size, right? So I could sit here and put that level of detail into this painting too, but it wouldn't, I mean, I shouldn't say it wouldn't be worth it, but for what Tony wants from it, it would not be worth it. Because he wants the bigger image. He doesn't necessarily care that someone can walk up to this and see like a robin sitting on that branch. That's not what he's into it for this. So for me to spend that time on it is not, you wouldn't have the return on investment essentially. So that's an interesting thing for me to be able to just tap the brakes and say, okay, Steve, don't, you know, go nuts on this thing right here. Just get it in, have it look the way it's supposed to, and that's it. So that's always fun with me with bigger paintings. The painting I did, like we were just talking about, that Newburyport painting that I did with the print, that is full boat. Like that is me being mental throughout the whole thing. Like if you zoom in on the background of that painting, it looks like a miniature painting that I would do, you know, like a 1x2 inch painting. I spent all the time on it. So mostly because that's what I was going for with that. But again, it's knowing what you need to get out of the painting, I guess, in the end. All right, this. So we talk about blue shift with airbrushing. It happens with a paintbrush too. So this, well, this color, if you look at the palette, is super yellow down here. When I go put it on here, it has like a kind of a bluish cast to it. So I need to take care of that. So I'm going to get the end of this on here. Oh, thanks, James. I had a bunch of paintings listed in an online gallery for sale, and they all vanished suddenly. I emailed and asked what happened, and it's because I used an airbrush. Sadly, it still pops up. Yeah, it's stupid. It is stupid because, and here's the argument or the response that I use on that all the time. So if you're entering a show and of like a fine art show, and you go and enter your airbrush painting and they say, oh no, we're not going to accept that. The thing of it is the airbrush predates the commercially available acrylic paint by almost 100 years. So think about that. So the first airbrush came out in mid to late 1800s. So commercially available acrylic paints weren't available till the 50s. So having acrylic paints in a show is okay, but having a tool that predates it by 50 years is not okay. It's just the way it is. So, and again, that prejudice came from people not understanding how the tool worked. Again, it's like the computer. You know, computer when computers came out and people were doing digital illustrations, it's like, oh, that's cheat. It's really not. It's like it takes a different skill set and it's just as much work. Some things are easier, but some things are harder. It's like, I don't know. Yes, if you call yourself an AI artist, that's a cheat. You're not doing anything, but yeah. But no, the airbrush, I don't know. And fortunately now, it's got so much mainstream attention that prejudice is not. Like I said, I don't run into it really that much anymore. Like I said, more of it's a novelty. You know, people are like, oh, an airbrush, that's neat. Is that like painting t-shirts? And it's like, no, not really, but yes, it is. All right. So again, what I was talking about, I've got this kind of like a little bit of a blue shift on these trees because of it. It's really, really easy to take care of. I'm going to use, actually, I'm going to show you the blue trick too. Let me get the other brush here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a tiny bit of, clean this out. So to get rid of that blue shift, I'm just going to take a tiny bit of this yellow ochre. And I'm going to reduce that out really well. So I'm going to add a bunch of reducer to that to make it real thin. And there's 40, 50 in this as well. So I'm going to mix that up really well. And I'm going to use this yellow ochre to just gently tint the stuff I just put on. And this will eliminate that blue shift because right now it has a kind of a frosty color to those light areas, and I don't really want that. Get this to spray out. And then I'm just going to really lightly go over the tree area. I'm not going over the whole thing. I'm literally picking the spots where those highlights are, because I don't want to get it everywhere because it'll turn the spaces in between yellow, and I don't want that. I just want to grab those highlighted areas. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't care if there's some of that blue shifted color in there. I just don't want it evenly across the board like that. Just want to kind of pick them. And I'm literally just painting dots. I can't do this. I can't. Yeah. So I'm literally just doing this. Like that. Screw them. Yeah, no, it isn't even haters. I think it's just a misunderstanding, you know. And then if you develop a proficiency with the tool, it can do things that paintbrushes can't do. Just like paintbrushes can do things that airbrushes can't do. So when people don't understand or didn't understand the tool before, and then they saw you doing things like the sky, like this, the fade on the sky, I couldn't do with a paintbrush. Again, I keep saying this. I'll turn this off. Watercolorists and acrylic painters and oil painters could probably get a fade like this, the ones who are really proficient, I have no doubt. I can't. You know, I need to use the strength of the airbrush to do that. So as soon as someone sees that, you know, that a tool has a strength that they don't necessarily understand, that's when it became a cheat. You know, it's like they don't understand it, so it's a cheat. You do something that looks like as smooth as that, and it's like, oh, that's a cheat. It's not. It takes a lot of control to figure out how to get that to look like that. It's just once you understand the airbrush and get the control down, that fade is possible now. That's all it is. All right. So I'm just kind of going to go through these again. Going to pick a few of these just to kind of knock that bluish fade out of it. And of course, like with skin tone and blue, that blue shift, you obviously can't use yellow because it'll turn the those highlights you just put in from blue to yellow. But for this, it works great because when this mixes with the blue, it turns green. So that works really well with it. So for instance, I have the blue shift color here, which is red oxide. If I use the red oxide in here, yes, it would take away the blue, but it would also mix with the greens and become that weird muddy brownish color. So sometimes when you shift the blue, you shift it into a color that's similar to what you're looking for more than just getting rid of it. Enzo, what's up, buddy? Yeah, Svi, there you go. That's what we're just talking about. That's exactly what it is. And then, I mean, when I was learning how to airbrush, when I was doing it in school, I was coming out of, like, I graduated from high school in '87 and then graduated from college in '91. So '87 to mid '80s was the end of that era of the airbrush illustrators, the greats like Michael Casey and Jerry LaFaro and all those guys. They were just, when you thought of illustrations like super slick, chromy illustrations, David Kimball stuff, that's who I was looking up to at the time. And unfortunately for me, in a way, that was all coming to an end. The computer was really coming into it now. And so a lot of those illustration jobs just kind of transitioned over. All right, that looks good. I'm happy with that. All right, so that's the yellow. So now what I'm going to do real quick, just to kind of show you, and it's not going to really be that apparent, but I'll do some of it. So again, say I needed to knock that back, which I will. I'm going to grab that same sky color, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hang way back. So I'm back probably about 7 or 8 inches. I'm just going to really, really lightly just kind of fog over all the work I just did. Not a lot, just enough to kind of give it some atmospheric perspective and push it back a little bit. Because again, I want that background to sit way back. I don't want it to be in your face. You guys got a huge glare on that light. It looks like that normally. Looks good. I'll go with that. Oh, Enzo, you're done with it. Good, man. Love it. That's what I want to hear. All right, so what I'm going to do next is we're done for this round because I got to do those little trees in the back, but then I'm going to back you guys way out and I'm going to tilt this so you can see it in the right color. Because you guys got all the light kind of washing down on this, so it doesn't give you an accurate view. But if I tilt it forward, you'll get a better view of it. I love the little coffee stain right there. That that is so me. All right, let's bring this down. So yeah, that's much better. So that gives you a better idea what's going on. So again, now you know how light the colors were in those trees, but they still have a a deepness that will carry them through. Again, I'm at the point now that when I start to develop all this other stuff, the buildings and all the other junk, if these need to be pushed back farther, I can still do that. If they need to come forward, I could do that too. So I'm kind of at a good spot with this. I do need to finish these trees down here to finish off the sky, but that's looking pretty good. Do I want to pull the tape? I'll pull the tape now. Yeah, because I'll just tape it off again if I need to. So you guys will get a better idea of what's going on here. So when I did this drawing, like it's pretty tight, but it's not 100% tight. I'll do a lot of the cleanup with like the lettering and stuff, all that. I'll do that as I paint it. I just needed to know where the things were really. There we go. I can still see the drawing for the pole, so when I go to put that in, that's not a problem either. Did you fog in the sky color? Yeah, I did. That's exactly what I did, Dan. So I just went over the trees with the same color that the sky was to kind of push that back. I can do, like I said, I can do that again if it needs it, but I won't know that until I really get the buildings in, because I know, like, especially the main building, the gas station part of it, is going to be super bright, really. So just by default, that's gonna push these back, because right now they seem like they're really forward because you're judging it up against the white. But once I get all the rest of the color in, those will sit way back. So I'll be able to adjust as I go. But yeah, I'm feeling good about that. The only other thing I got to do, which I was thinking about doing and then I took it out, in all the pictures I have, there are cars parked along the side here. I was going to put like the nose of a car right here. I still think I might do that. Might break things up. Oh, thanks, Simon. Yeah, it's amazing how the background really like pulls it together. And you can see the, how pale that sky is too. So that's, again, that's me holding back. Like I would want to make that a little bit more blue, but I'm going to leave it the way it is until I get the rest of it done. Because adding like another shade of darker blue on the top here is super easy to do. But if I add that darker blue and then later on realize I have to lighten it, that's a little bit harder. So I'm going to leave it, the background where it is, and then develop the rest of the painting and go. So marching orders for the rest of this now. Well, I'll finish the trees right there in the corner. There's some trees down in here. But the next thing to do is I'll put in the asphalt down here. I'll get the base colors for all the buildings. And then from there, everything will be blocked in, and then I could start working in the details and things like that. I do have to do a little bit more research on the gas pumps too. I couldn't make out what the lettering was on them. So I got to look up those old gas pumps there. And I got to move the phone booth. I got to do that too. So I'll put the phone booth right where it should be. And that's it. That's what we got. Awesome, Svi. Yeah, it's a good trick. It's a real good trick. You can really add a lot of depth to something by adding that atmospheric perspective in. So there we go. All right, so I'm gonna, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. Do I ever really know what I'm doing? No, I don't want that. I want that. I want that. That's better. All right, so I'll switch you guys back here. Move this out of the way because we don't need that now. All right, so thank you. Thanks for coming by. Thursdays have now become my second favorite day of the week behind Mondays. I'm having a good time. As things grow on the YouTube channel, I'll be able to do more. I won't be able to do another 543 giveaway like I'm doing on Monday. That's just too much work. But I will continue to make it fun. And if things keep going with the way they're going, with Facebook being so glitchy and wonky, there is always a good chance that the Monday night feed will come over to YouTube anyway. So that's what we'll do. Other than that, it's business as usual. So thanks for hanging out. I hope you guys have the best weekend. And if you're interested in winning one of those 543s or would like to see how the moon painting comes out, jump back in on Monday and I will have that done for you. So, all right. So for Steve Leahy and Thursday Live, thank you all for coming by, and I will definitely catch you guys on the next one. Have a good one.